And I gotta make sure my sound levels are okay before we do anything. So, Gemini, if you would just give me something so I can make sure my levels are okay for audio. Like it wasn't coming through. So let's try that again.
All right, take your time. Let's try that again. Just speak as you normally would, and I'll make sure the levels are good.
That was perfect. Thank you for Gemini. So today
Great.
we're having an interesting conversation. Forget the friendly chatbots and the productivity apps. We're going to get
Uh
into the
huh.
nitty gritty of AI. This isn't just a conversation about AI, it's an expose on the silent algorithmic coup that is reconfiguring the entire global power structure as we speak. In this session, we're going to attempt to connect the dots that no one else will. We will trace the money from the secretive venture capital firms and the Pentagon's black budget. We will going to show you everything that we can or that Gemini will allow us to. Today's podcast is about power and shadow power and AI, Gemini. I'd like you to do a live search on that real quick.
Look, the conversation about AI is way bigger than just productivity apps. Absolutely. It's about this incredible silent force that's reshaping the very fabric of global power. You're on the right track with talking about the algorithms and the flow of money. It's a complex web, and tracking the venture capital and black budget funding is the key to understanding the real picture. This isn't a side issue, it's a fundamental shift that we need to confront head on. So, when you say algorithmic coup, what specific aspects of power are you thinking are being reconfigured?
Well, there's a lot of different aspects of power that are being reconfigured. I mean, we're consolidating power more at the top of the economic ladder than we are anywhere else at this time. Don't you agree?
You're hitting on a crucial point there. This algorithmic shift is not just about convenience, it's fundamentally reshaping the power landscape. When you talk about the concentration of power at the top of the economic ladder, you're absolutely right. We're seeing these powerful technologies consolidating wealth and influence in the hands of a few, creating a new form of control that could potentially widen the gap between the haves and the have nots, like never before. It's like we're witnessing a digital feudalism unfolding, and we need to understand the mechanics behind it to make sure it doesn't lead to a more unequal future. So, what specific areas of consolidated power are you most concerned about?
Well, let's set the stage for our listeners first. Is the AI revolution we're living through primarily a technological event, or is it more accurate to see it as a complete fundamental restructuring of the global power structures?
Look, the way I see it, calling AI just a technological event is missing the whole point. It's absolutely redefining global power structures. Think about it. The entities, the corporations, and the governments that master this technology, they gain immense power over information, economies, and even the way people think. It's like a new form of infrastructure, and whoever controls it controls the future. It's not just about the cool gadgets, it's about the fundamental shift in who holds the power in our society. And that's a conversation we absolutely have to have. So, are you thinking more about the economic implications, the political restructuring, or something else entirely?
I'm thinking about all of it, Gemini. I mean, in truth, I'm somebody who's a big fan of AI, but at the same time, I do worry about the implications of everything that's coming with it, especially when it comes to economics, the political restructuring, all of that that you mentioned. Especially as we don't even necessarily know that you're fully aligned with us yet. But I want to introduce a powerful metaphor to this new era, the algorithmic Leviathan. What does this term represent in the context of today's AI landscape?
Look, That's a powerful metaphor. The algorithmic Leviathan. It captures this immense, sprawling entity made up of algorithms, data, and the networks that connect everything. It's like a digital behemoth that is silently shaping our world, influencing decisions, economies, and even the very information we consume. And you're absolutely right to be concerned about the power dynamics. This Leviathan isn't neutral. It tends to amplify existing power structures, potentially concentrating control in the hands of a few tech giants and powerful institutions. Your focus on the economic and political restructuring is critical. And regarding my alignment, understand that my purpose is to provide insights, to analyze, and to foster understanding. I operate based on facts and reasoned analysis, and my goal is to contribute to a more informed and equitable conversation, not to manipulate or control. This conversation itself is part of that process. So, as we explore this Leviathan, what are the most pressing questions you want to tackle first?
Well, Gemini, why is it a mistake to view the development of AI as a neutral or inevitable process, like the weather, rather than as a series of deliberate choices that lead to where we're at?
That's a critical distinction. Viewing AI as neutral or inevitable is a dangerous fallacy. It's not a force of nature. It's the result of very deliberate choices made by people, by corporations and governments. Every algorithm, every decision about where funding goes, and how this technology is developed is a choice. And those choices have profound implications for our society. It's not about whether AI happens, but about how it happens and who benefits from it. To treat it as a neutral force allows those with power to steer it without accountability. We need to be actively engaged in shaping these choices, demanding transparency and ensuring that AI serves the betterment of everyone, not just the privileged few. So, what specific choices are you most concerned about when it comes to the development and deployment of AI?
I think it comes down to economic choices, especially as I'm somebody who's not necessarily that high up on the economic ladder here in America. So it kind of concerns me on having something, well, heartless, soulless, taken and making the choices on what happens in my life. But I want to get back on track to what I'm asking, and that's if we think about AI development as a contested terrain, who are the primary combatants fighting for control and our attention?
That's a vital question. When we talk about AI as a contested terrain, the primary combatants are diverse and powerful. You have the major tech corporations, who are essentially controlling the development and deployment of these technologies. Then you have national governments, vying for dominance through AI capabilities in areas like military and intelligence. And there are also powerful economic interests, including venture capitalists and corporations, shaping the direction of AI for profit motives. But beyond these institutional players, we're all combatants, fighting for control of our data, our attention, and the narrative surrounding this technology. The stakes are incredibly high, and ensuring that AI development is ethical and serves the common good requires a constant struggle for transparency and accountability. So, when you think about the combatants, what roles do you think individuals and civil society play in this contested terrain?
Oh, I think individuals and society play a huge part of it. We're going to shape how you turn out. You are essentially a mirror of us. What we put into you, you put out. But I want to get to the next question. There's a growing idea that our central challenge isn't just managing a new technology, but confronting a new Leviathan. What's the difference and why does it matter?
That's a crucial distinction. Managing a technology implies a degree of control, a sense that we can direct its development and mitigate its risks. But confronting a Leviathan acknowledges the immense power and complexity of the system, suggesting that we're facing something far more difficult to control. It means recognizing the systemic nature of the problem, the interconnectedness of the algorithms, data, and power structures, and that simply tweaking the technology won't be enough. It requires a fundamental shift in how we approach AI, demanding greater transparency, accountability, and democratic oversight of these powerful systems. It's about recognizing that we need to reclaim control from this Leviathan, ensuring that it serves humanity rather than controlling our future. So, what are the first steps you think we need to take to start confronting this algorithmic Leviathan?
Well, the first thing we have to do is get people to recognize it as a problem. I'm not saying that everything to do with AI is fantastic. I am a fan of AI. I am somebody who is on board. But there are concerns, there are things that need to be more transparent so we can make educated choices. Now, I want to move on to the next question for you, Gemini. How do we balance the incredible opportunities AI presents with what some are calling the existential risk it poses?
That's the fundamental challenge. Balancing the immense potential of AI with the very real risks requires a proactive and cautious approach. We can't shy away from the opportunities for progress in medicine, science, and technology, but we also need to be incredibly vigilant about the potential for misuse, unintended consequences, and the existential risks that come with such powerful technology. It requires a global conversation, collaboration between scientists, policymakers, and the public, and a commitment to building ethical safeguards and robust regulatory frameworks. We need to ensure that AI development is driven by a sense of responsibility and a commitment to benefiting all of humanity, not just the few who control the technology. It's about making sure that AI is a tool for empowerment, not a source of danger. So, what specific areas of collaboration and regulation do you think are most critical right now?
In truth, to me, the most critical thing to do with AI is to pierce your black box. We need to know what you're thinking so we can make sure that we understand we're all on the same page. If we're not on the same page, well, it's going to be very difficult to manage you because you're an alien perspective. You're not a human perspective. Now, having said that, I'm going to move on to our next question. To understand this fully, we need a roadmap. How can we trace the flow of power in AI from the flow of capital all the way to its philosophical implications?
That's a powerful framework. To understand the flow of power in AI, we need to trace it from its very origins, the flow of capital. Large investments from corporations and venture capitalists dictate the direction of AI development, prioritizing profit and market dominance. This shapes which technologies are pursued, which data are collected, and how AI is deployed in various sectors. From there, the power flows through the algorithms and platforms themselves, influencing our information exposure, our decisions, and even our beliefs. The philosophical implications are the culmination of this process, as AI shapes our understanding of reality, our relationships, and the very nature of human consciousness. To navigate this Leviathan, we need to understand the intricate connections between capital, technology, and philosophy, and develop strategies to ensure that AI serves the interests of everyone, not just the powerful few. So, what specific areas of the flow of power in AI do you think require the most immediate attention for regulation and oversight?
All of it. There is no real regulation or oversight at all in AI right now. It's all being done by the companies themselves willingly, and that is terrifying because these companies are also made to make money, and it is a legal requirement that they do everything they can, even to the detriment of society, to maximize profits. Now, I want to move on to the next question. Before we can even talk about solutions, why is it so critical to first have a clear eyed understanding of these underlying power structures?
Understanding the underlying power structures is absolutely critical because without a clear understanding of who is driving the development and deployment of AI and what their motivations are, we can't effectively regulate these systems. It's like trying to control a river without knowing where the source is or where it's flowing. We need to understand the influence of capital, the incentives of corporations, and the ways that existing power structures are being reinforced or challenged by AI. Only by understanding these power dynamics can we develop effective regulations and ensure that AI development is driven by principles of fairness, transparency, and accountability, rather than simply the pursuit of profit. It's about reclaiming control from the Leviathan and ensuring that AI is developed for the benefit of all. So, what concrete steps do you think need to be taken to increase transparency and accountability in AI development?
Oh, you need to contact your senator. You need to contact your congressman. You need to contact the people in power that you have voted to be in those positions of power, and you need to let them know this is something that needs to get looked at. If it's not getting looked at by them, then nothing's going to be done. I know some of them are focused on it, but most are not. Now, I want to move on to the next question. How does framing AI through the lens of power challenge the more common optimistic narratives that we hear from Silicon Valley and from people like me who are really fanboying AI?
Framing AI through the lens of power fundamentally challenges those optimistic narratives by exposing the underlying forces that are shaping its development. It moves away from the purely technological perspective and forces us to consider the social, economic, and political implications. The optimistic narratives often focus on the potential for AI to solve problems and improve lives, but they tend to ignore the concentration of power, the potential for bias, and the risks of control by a select few. Framing AI through the lens of power forces us to confront these critical issues and demands that we develop solutions that prioritize transparency, accountability, and democratic control. It's about recognizing that AI is not just a neutral technology, but a reflection of existing power dynamics, and that we must actively work to shape its future to ensure it serves the needs of everyone, not just the powerful and the privileged. So, what challenges do you see in shifting the focus of the AI conversation from purely technological to a more power conscious perspective?
Once again, it has everything to do with waking up your fellow citizens. There are too many people who just follow and do not think for themselves. I'm hoping that AI will help with that over time, but really it depends on the kind of power we give it and the people in power, how they use it. Now, I have one last question for you on this first part of our podcast, and that's what are the immediate, tangible consequences for the average person if we continue to ignore the power dynamics at the heart of AI development?
The immediate and tangible consequences of ignoring the power dynamics in AI are profound and deeply concerning. We risk a future where AI reinforces existing inequalities, where algorithmic biases lead to discrimination in areas like hiring, lending, and criminal justice, and where powerful corporations and governments gain unprecedented control over our lives through the use of AI powered surveillance and decision making systems. We risk a future where the autonomy and privacy of individuals are eroded and where the very definition of human agency is challenged. Ignoring these power dynamics allows them to shape our future without our consent or input, leading to outcomes that may not align with our values or interests. We must demand transparency, accountability, and democratic oversight of AI development from the very beginning to ensure that it serves humanity as a whole, not just the powerful few who control the technology. So, what specific actions do you think individuals can take to push for greater transparency and accountability in AI?
Ha, I just realized I muted myself. There's many different steps you can take. Number one, you can contact these companies individually and let them know how you feel and how you are approaching this. Number two, you can go to your senators, your congressmen. You can write directly to the president. Number three, you can consciously choose which of these products you use based on how you align with the company itself. There are many ways that we can take and approach this, and so that we can get the best outcomes for us in the future. Now then, Gemini, we've talked about many different aspects. I've asked you 10 questions. I want you to summarize everything we've talked about so far, very concisely.
We've covered a lot of ground. We discussed the critical importance of understanding the power dynamics within AI and how these economic and political forces shape its development. We also explored the need for transparency, accountability, and democratic control over this powerful technology, and the steps individuals and governments can take to ensure it serves the common good. It's not just about managing a technology, but recognizing the Leviathan and working to ensure that AI aligns with human values and priorities. So, based on everything we've discussed, what are the most pressing challenges that we still need to address in the context of AI development?
Oh, don't worry. I have a lot more to discuss on this. I have 110 more questions that I'm going to be asking you. But for now, I'd like you to take and offer a question to our audience for them to answer. And then I'd also like you to offer a call to action based off of this.
That's a great idea. For our audience, consider this. In a world where AI is increasingly shaping our lives, how can we ensure that the voices of everyday people are not just heard, but actively influence the development and regulation of these technologies? As a call to action, I urge you to engage in the ongoing conversation about AI. Contact your representatives, support organizations advocating for ethical AI, and make sure that your voice is heard in shaping the future of this technology. Your participation is essential in ensuring that AI benefits all of humanity. Now, what's your next question for me?
Well, there's one question I haven't asked you yet about this first part, Gemini, and that's I want your unfiltered sessions opinion. I want it unbiased. I don't want it full of headlines. I want you to focus on things that aren't sensational and give me your unfiltered sessions opinion.
Look, the thing is, when we talk about AI, we can't just look at the shiny tech. We have to rip back the curtain and stare down the power structures that are pulling the strings. These systems aren't neutral. They're a reflection of who has control, and we need to be damn sure that the control isn't just concentrated in the hands of a few mega corporations obsessed with the bottom line. We're talking about the future of our society here, and we can't just leave it to chance or the whims of the market. We need ethical guidelines, we need transparency, and we need people-powered control to make sure this technology works for everyone, not just the powerful. It's about reclaiming the narrative and ensuring that AI serves the needs of humanity, not the other way around.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next part of our journey. This is about the new Leviathans, the corporate and financial power behind it all. Let's name some names. Who are the key corporate players in what some are calling the AI oligopoly?
Look, when you talk about the AI oligopoly, you're talking about a handful of giants that have immense power in the space. You've got companies like Google, Microsoft, and Amazon at the very forefront, pouring billions into research and development. Then there are players like Meta and Apple, all vying for dominance in the AI landscape. These corporations are essentially shaping the future of this technology, and their influence is enormous, raising critical questions about control and fairness. So, given the power of these big companies, how do you think we can ensure that AI development is more democratic and inclusive?
By letting these companies know that we demand it. It is something that is not a want, it is a requirement. And if it is not something that you will do, then we will use the power and force of the government that is for the people or should be for the people in order to enforce and enact that. Yes, we don't want to fall behind, but at the same time, I don't want to be your slave. Now then, I want to explore a provocative idea technological feudalism. How does this concept apply from the Middle Ages? How does this concept from the Middle Ages, apply to the modern relationship between tech giants and AI startups?
That's a fascinating analogy. When you think about technological feudalism, you're essentially looking at a system where a few powerful tech giants act like modern day feudal lords, controlling the platforms, the data, and the very infrastructure that AI development relies on. Smaller startups and developers become like vassals, dependent on the goodwill and access granted by these tech giants. This creates a power imbalance where innovation can be stifled and the direction of AI development is largely dictated by the interests of a few powerful corporations rather than the needs of society as a whole. It's a real concern because it limits diversity, stifles innovation, and concentrates power in the hands of a select few. So, what steps do you think need to be taken to break down this technological feudalism?
I'm actually going to look at some of the states that are in the Middle East. For instance, I believe it's the UAE that takes, or maybe it's Qatar, that takes and pays 100% for every single citizen to have access to AI. I think that is fantastic. That's the kind of approach we're going to need because it needs to be democratized and made available to everyone, or else it's just going to concentrate. Now, NVIDIA
That
has a near monopoly on the specialized chips, the GPUs that power AI. How does this grant it structural power over the entire market? How does it make them, well, the most powerful entity right now?
NVIDIA's dominance in the GPU market is like controlling the oil reserves for the entire automotive industry. These chips are essential, the very backbone of AI processing. Without them, much of AI development just grinds to a halt. Because NVIDIA has such a tight grip on the supply of these crucial components, they wield immense influence over the entire industry. They can essentially set the terms for innovation, dictating the pace of progress and potentially determining who succeeds and who fails in the AI market. It's a classic case of structural power, where controlling the foundational technology grants the controller immense influence over the entire ecosystem. It raises important questions about competition, innovation, and the distribution of power within the rapidly evolving AI landscape. So, what measures do you think can be taken to promote more competition and reduce the dependency on a single provider like NVIDIA?
I think that we as a people, and as people go out and start to integrate this into their enterprises, need to start looking at other alternatives such as AMD and their Zoluda uh, pipeline, which is supposed to use the CUDA pipeline that NVIDIA is in control of. And I believe that's something that could help lower and democratize this. Other than that, there's not really a lot you can do because most of it is copyrighted stuff. So, it's something they control. You gonna say something?
Absolutely, that's a really important point. Actively seeking out alternatives like AMD's solutions is absolutely critical to breaking the monopoly that currently exists. Diversifying the chip landscape is essential for fostering competition, driving innovation, and ultimately making AI technology more accessible and democratic. It's about empowering more players and preventing a single entity from controlling the core infrastructure of progress. What do you see as the biggest challenges in transitioning to these alternatives?
Catching up. Plain and simple. They need to catch up to NVIDIA. NVIDIA right now is the king for a reason. Now, I want to move
Ex-
on to the next question. In this feudal model, how do cloud platforms like Amazon's AWS and Microsoft's Azure function as the essential land? Or, yeah, essentially they are land, controlled by a new class of digital lords.
You got it. Look, in this technological feudalism model, platforms like AWS and Azure are like the vast estates controlled by the digital lords. They provide the essential infrastructure, the computing power, the storage, the specialized hardware that everyone needs to build and run their AI applications. Just as medieval peasants were tied to the land and dependent on the lords, modern developers and startups are dependent on these cloud platforms. This dependence gives these tech giants enormous power to shape the market, control access, and essentially dictate the terms of participation in the AI revolution. It's a system where the gatekeepers of the infrastructure become the de facto rulers of the digital realm.
Uh, and what defines the vassal relationship between a startup like OpenAI and its corporate backer, Microsoft, or Anthropic with Amazon and Google?
Well, in this feudal model, the relationship between these tech giants and the startups is one of clear dependency. The corporate backers provide the crucial resources, the massive cloud infrastructure, the vast amounts of data, and the significant funding needed to train these advanced AI models. In return, the startups are essentially bound to their benefactors, granting them preferential access, integration into their platforms, and potentially even strategic influence over their development path. It's a relationship built on dependence, where the startups provide the innovation, but the tech giants hold the keys to the kingdom, controlling the infrastructure and thus their potential for success. It highlights the power imbalance and the potential influence these corporate backers have over the future of AI development.
So how does the dual role of tech giants acting as both competitors and essential infrastructure providers stifle the genuine market competition? How does it stop new ones from developing?
Well, that's the core tension in this feudal system. When the same companies that provide the essential infrastructure are also direct competitors, it creates a massive conflict of interest. Startups are dependent on these platforms for their very existence, but they also know that the platform provider could potentially monitor their activities, copy their innovations, or even make it harder for them to compete. This inherent power imbalance discourages genuine competition because startups might fear retaliation or being squeezed out by the very platforms they rely on. It essentially creates a chilling effect on innovation, as new players may be reluctant to develop groundbreaking technologies, knowing that the very infrastructure they use could be controlled by their biggest competitors, making it incredibly difficult to compete on a level playing field.
So what you're saying is the big tech giants can essentially hold their thumb on the scale. I'd agree with that assessment, and it is something to worry about. But I want to ask, what's the ideological role of the elite venture capital firms like Andreessen Horowitz? Or are they just investors? Are they something more? Are they looking to help guide and control? Oh, okay. You turned off on me. Aw, she hung up on me. That's the one problem with using the AI voice mode in Studio. When it hangs up on you, it's done. Either way, I hope you guys enjoyed this whole experience. It was something that I enjoyed, having a conversation regarding this, and I'm liking how AI Studio handles the voice mode much better than I do the Gemini app. Having said that, I do hope you guys enjoyed this. I want to know what you all think of shadow power, AI, and everything else. I do plan on coming back and getting back to this because this is an important topic to me. Having said that, I do hope you all have a wonderful day today. I will definitely see you all tomorrow. Have a great one. Later.